Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Truly, no text, no chasing, no checking in to see where things stand, just stillness. And I know how hard that is when you care. When you're emotionally invested in someone, it feels almost unnatural to pull back. Your instinct is to explain yourself, to fix things, to remind them of your worth, to do something that makes them see what they're missing. But here's the truth. If they can't already see it, your words won't make them. Your silence might. There's something incredibly disarming about absence. When someone is used to you showing up consistently, generously, sometimes too generously, they begin to take it for granted. It becomes part of the background noise of their life. You being there becomes the default setting. They don't notice it anymore. Take it away. Suddenly there's a void they didn't expect. And in that void, the questions start. Where did she go? Why is she texting me? Is she done? Is she moving on? These aren't just questions. They're the beginning of doubt. And doubt is a powerful emotional disruptor. It shakes certainty. It challenges comfort. And most importantly, it makes someone realize they were never entitled to your attention in the first place. That's why I say, let him doubt. Let him sit with the silence you've created by not rushing to fix something he broke. You're not punishing him. You're protecting your energy. You're saying, I won't convince you to value me. You either do or you don't. And if you don't, I'm already gone. That is power. It's not loud power. It's quiet. It's subtle, but it's undeniable. See, when you stop trying to be understood, when you stop trying to explain why you're hurt or what you need over and over again, you force someone to do the one thing they've been avoiding. Reflect. As long as you're there pouring your emotions out, they don't need to reflect. They already have access to your thoughts. But take that away, and now they're left with only their own. And often, that's when they start to see the crack. They start wondering, did I mess this up? Did I misread how serious she was? Did I think I had more time? That wondering, that's essential, because you can't teach someone a lesson with words that they're not ready to hear, but you can create an experience that teaches them more than a lecture ever could. And look, this isn't about playing games. This is about alignment. If someone isn't matching your energy, if they're giving you inconsistency, mixed signals, breadcrumbs, you owe it to yourself to step back. Not because you're trying to make them chase you, but because your peace matters more than their confusion. You're not waiting in limbo hoping they choose you. You're moving forward. You're making space for someone who won't hesitate. But the beauty is, the moment you do that, when you take that step back, you give them the opportunity to feel what life is like without you. And that's where the transformation happens. If they were just cruising along, thinking you'd always be there, no matter how little they showed up, this is the wake-up call. And maybe they'll snap out of it. Maybe they'll realize what they had and come back different. Or maybe they won't, and you'll already be on your way to something better. Either way, you win. Because you didn't beg, you didn't force, you let them come to their own conclusions. Letting someone doubt, wonder, and even regret isn't cruel. It's necessary, especially when you've done your part. When you've been clear, kind, consistent, and committed, and they still didn't meet you where you stood. You're no longer the one who has to carry the weight of fixing it. Let them feel it. Let them replay the moments where they could have stepped up and didn't. Let them sit in the silence and wonder if this time you really meant it. Because when you mean it, when your actions finally align with your worth, everything changes. The power dynamic shifts. Not because you're trying to hold it over them, but because you're no longer available for confusion. You're no longer participating in the emotional tug of war. You've dropped the rope. And here's the thing, if someone values you, they won't want to live in that doubt for long. They'll come forward. They'll bring clarity. They'll take action. But if they don't, let that be your answer. Silence is often the most honest response someone can give you. And sometimes it's the only one you need. So let him doubt. Let him wonder. Let him regret. But you move forward. If he's doubting whether he still has you, that's good. That's not something to fear. It's something to embrace. Doubt in this context isn't confusion about who you are or what you bring to the table. It's his uncertainty about whether he still has access to the version of you he used to take for granted. That kind of doubt is healthy. Not for you, but for him. It shakes him out of complacency. It makes him realize that the emotional safety net he assumed would always be there might not be anymore. When someone starts to doubt whether they still have you, it's often because you've stopped operating from a place of scarcity. You're no longer trying to prove your worth. You've realized that your energy is precious, your time is not renewable, and your love is not a gift to be handed out carelessly. And when that shift happens, when you start valuing yourself differently, he feels it. He might not be able to put his finger on exactly what's changed, but he'll sense that the emotional dynamic has shifted. You're no longer orbiting around him. You've become the sun again in your own life, and that throws him off balance. We live in a world where so many people are taught that love means constantly reassuring someone, constantly chasing them, constantly reminding them that you're there, but that's not love. That's fear. Real love starts when fear ends. When you stop being afraid of losing someone who isn't doing the work to keep you, that's when your power comes back. And ironically, that's often when they start to notice you differently. Because the moment you stop needing them to choose you is the moment they start to realize they might not be chosen. And it's the doubt I'm talking about. The doubt that he might have mistaken your kindness for weakness. The doubt that maybe, just maybe, he didn't appreciate you while he had you. That perhaps you weren't asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. Let him sit with that. Let him question the version of events he built in his mind, where you were always going to be there, always going to wait, always going to settle for breadcrumbs. Because when you start requiring more, not in words, but in action, it forces him to recalibrate how he sees you. Here's the thing. When someone never experiences the risk of losing you, they never fully value having you. It's not about playing games. It's about allowing space for awareness. If you constantly make yourself available, if you keep reminding him that you're there, no matter how little he shows up, what reason does he have to reflect? What reason does he have to grow? Why would he ever feel the urge to evolve when he knows there's no consequence for staying the same? Doubt is not always a bad thing. In fact, sometimes it's the spark that reignites awareness. It creates space for him to examine who you are, what you gave, how you showed up, how consistent you were, and compare that to how he met you in return. And if you are strong enough to walk away or even just pull back to protect your peace, that doubt becomes a mirror. A mirror he may not want to look into at first, but one that starts reflecting the reality he ignored. And in that space, in that discomfort, something interesting happens. He starts wondering, what if she's not mine anymore? No, that's not just fear talking. That's recognition. The recognition that he might have lost someone who was all in. Someone who truly saw him, believed in him, and made space for him, even when he didn't deserve it. That realization, if he's capable of growth, becomes the birthplace of regret, but it starts with doubt. So don't rush to soothe that doubt. Don't scramble to patch up the uncertainty he feels. Let him feel it. Let him sit in the void where your attention used to be. Let him miss the certainty of your presence. Let him feel the absence of your reassurance, your support, your energy. Because that's when he'll start asking himself the right questions. Not about you, but about himself. Why didn't he show up properly? Why didn't he listen when you expressed what you needed? Why did he think you'd always be there? You don't need to manufacture these moments. You just need to stop overextending yourself for someone who isn't meeting you halfway. You don't have to make him feel insecure. You just have to stop giving him security he hasn't earned. And in doing so, you create the very doubt that forces growth. You remind him, without a single dramatic exit or angry text, that you are not an option to be picked up and put down at convenience. You are a choice, a consistent, valuable, extra, any choice. And the moment someone doubts they still have you, they start remembering why they wanted you in the first place. Let him doubt. That doubt is the consequence of your strength. Let him wonder about the life you're creating without him. That's the shift. That's the turning point where everything starts to change. Not because you're trying to be cold, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you finally realize that your life deserves to be bigger than someone else's indecision. When someone steps back, when someone pulls away, our instinct is to fill that space, to reach out, to explain, to prove our worth. But what if instead of rushing to fill the silence, you let the silence speak for you? What if you let him sit with the mystery of who you're becoming in his absence? That's what creates real intrigue. Not games, not pretending to be busy, but actually being busy. Busy with your growth, your joy, your passions, your friends, your goals. The kind of busy that has nothing to do with pretending and everything to do with choosing you. Let him wonder what you're up to now that you're not chasing him. Let him wonder why your energy has shifted, why you're not so available anymore. Let him feel the void left behind, not because you're punishing him, but because your energy has simply moved on to more aligned places. And the truth is, we don't need to make anyone pay for their distance. The real price they pay is watching you evolve without them. This is where you take your power back, not by yelling louder, not by making dramatic exits, but by simply living in a way that makes him feel your absence more than your presence. Ever begged to be noticed? You don't need to shout your value, you become your value. And that creates wonder. That creates the what if moments. That creates the late night thoughts of, did I mess up? Did I underestimate her? It's when he sees you smiling in a photo with genuine happiness that isn't attached to him. When he hears about the things you're doing that you used to only talk about with him. When he realizes that the things you once asked him to notice, to appreciate, to invest in, you're now doing them anyway, for yourself. He starts to question, was I a fool to walk away? Was I too distracted to notice what I had? And while he's wondering, you're rising quietly, consistently, without needing to prove anything. That's the beauty of this mindset. It's not about revenge. It's not about making someone regret out of spite. It's about evolving so powerfully that regret becomes inevitable. When you stop orbiting someone who didn't choose you with clarity, you begin creating gravity around your own life. You stop sending signals that say, I'm still waiting. And you start radiating a message that says, I've moved on to what matches my energy. And that's when someone feels the shift. That's when the wondering begins. Let him wonder who you're talking to now. Let him wonder why your tone is lighter, your energy cleaner, your boundaries sharper. Let him wonder how you've become this version of yourself that no longer asks for crumbs, because when you no longer need their validation, you become magnetic in a way that's not even intentional. It's just who you are now. You were never supposed to convince anyone of your worth. You were supposed to live it. That's the lesson. That's the shift. That's what makes someone stop in their tracks and go, wait, what did I let go of? And even if he never says it out loud, the wondering will live rent-free in his mind. Because silence backed by growth is louder than any argument could ever be. So don't explain where you've gone. Don't defend the shift in your vibe. Just keep building. Keep rising. Keep nurturing a life that excites you. Because the person who truly sees you, they won't need to wonder. They'll do everything they can to be part of that life, not question why they're not. Let him wonder. You were never trying to hurt him. You were just done shrinking yourself to be understood. That's the part most people miss. You didn't walk away to create drama or to play games. You walked away because there was nothing left to say that you hadn't already said through your loyalty, your patience, and your effort. You had shown up consistently. You had offered your heart, your time, your vulnerability, and for a while you held on to hope that it would be enough to inspire him to meet you halfway. But somewhere along the line you realized that love should never feel like you're auditioning for a part you already earned. And so you chose peace. You chose your self-worth over the temporary comfort of his half-effort. And now, maybe he's confused. Maybe he's starting to question what happened. He might even tell himself that you just changed, that you became distant, that something in you shifted. But what he won't admit, at least not out loud, is that he had every opportunity to keep you. He saw the signs. He saw the moments where your smile started to fade, where the sparkle in your eyes began to dim. He noticed when you stopped fighting for conversations, when your energy became quieter, more guarded, more tired, and he ignored them. That's where regret begins. Not when you leave, not when you say, "I'm done," but in the moments after, when he sits alone with his thoughts and realizes that all the little things you used to do, checking in on him, lifting him up when he was low, laughing at his dumb jokes, believing in his potential even when he didn't, those things have stopped. And they're not being replaced because no one does it like you did. That's when the regret hits like a wave he didn't see coming. See, regret is never loud. It's quiet. It's that moment in the middle of the night when he scrolls through old messages, wondering how someone who cared so deeply is now so unreachable. It's walking into a place where you once stood by his side and now he's standing there alone, wondering if someone else is holding your hand now. Regret is a slow burn, and it creeps in through the cracks he didn't even know existed until your absence revealed them. And here's the truth. It's not your job to fix that for him. It's not your responsibility to return just because he finally woke up to what he lost. Regret is the cost of taking you for granted. And for some people, it's the only language they understand. They don't respond to kindness, to patience, to love freely given. They respond to consequence, to the cold, undeniable reality of what happens when a good woman stops waiting. This is why letting him regret is powerful, not because it's revenge, but because it's truth. It's what allows him to finally see what you were trying to show him all along, without you having to keep bleeding emotionally just to prove your worth. You don't need to go back and explain yourself. You don't need to perform your pain so he believes you cared. Your silence says everything. Your growth, your joy, your movement forward, that's the statement. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop needing to be understood, you start being deeply respected, not just by him, but by yourself. You stop giving discounts on your value. You stop watering yourself down just to be digestible. You become someone who doesn't chase closure or clarity from others because you've found it within yourself. You know what you gave, you know how you showed up, and you know that his regret doesn't define your worth. It simply validates it. That's when everything starts to change. When you realize that love should feel like a partnership, not a project. That being chosen shouldn't feel like a reward for how much pain you endured. That someone who genuinely values you will never need to lose you to see your worth. They'll recognize it and protect it while they still have it. So let him regret. Let him sit in the discomfort of everything he didn't do. Let him feel the emptiness he created by not stepping up when you gave him the chance. Because it's in that space, in that absence, that he just might learn the most important lesson of all. That someone like you doesn't come around twice. Let him regret. You know what most people do when they feel distance growing between them and someone they care about? They panic. They fill the silence. They reach out. They explain. They overcompensate. Why? Because silence feels like rejection, like abandonment. And most of us would rather say the wrong thing than say nothing at all, just to avoid that feeling. But here's the truth that changes everything. Power is in the pause. When you're constantly reacting, constantly trying to fill the void, you give away your power. You show that your emotional state is dependent on their presence, their attention, their validation. But when you can sit in that uncomfortable space, when you can resist the urge to text, call, explain, or beg for clarity, you start to show a level of emotional maturity that's rare and deeply attractive. Think about it. When someone pulls back and you immediately run after them, what message does that send? It says, I need you more than I need my own peace. It says your inconsistency can control me. But when you allow that space to exist, when you don't chase, don't argue, don't force, you shift the energy entirely. You stop being reactive and start being reflective. And in that pause, they start to feel the shift. They start to wonder, wait, why hasn't she reached out? Why does this feel different this time? And that's where the doubt creeps in. Not in a manipulative way, but in a way that forces accountability. It makes them consider what they've done to cause the distance, rather than blaming you for the absence. Most people think the way to regain control is through action. Say the perfect thing, make the perfect move. But real power often lies in restraint, in letting the moment breathe, because in that breath, they have to confront something they haven't had to face before, the reality of your independence. You're showing them that you can exist without their energy feeding you. And let me tell you, that kind of a self-assuredness is magnetic. And look, this isn't easy. I'm not saying you won't feel the itch to fix it, to clear things up, to get back to comfort. But growth never happens in comfort. If you want to be someone who commands respect and emotional investment, you have to be willing to withstand the discomfort of silence. You have to be able to sit in that emotional void and not try to fill it just because it hurts. The pause is not just about them. It's about you. It's about proving to yourself that you don't need to chase in order to matter, that your voice doesn't need to echo constantly in someone else's life to be valuable. Sometimes the most powerful message you can send is no message at all. And it's not cold, it's not cruel, it's clarity. It's showing that you don't play tug of war with your self-worth. And the person on the other end, if they care, if they're even slightly emotionally intelligent, they will feel that absence. They will feel the weight of your silence. They will sense that something has shifted, that you're no longer as available, that the door, once open, may not swing as freely as it did before. That kind of realization, it doesn't happen when you're constantly showing up to explain yourself. It happens when you stop showing up for someone who doesn't meet you where you are. Let him doubt, let him wonder, let him regret. But don't let it be because you were playing games. Let it be because you finally stopped playing small. Because you stopped trying to fix a dynamic that was already off balance. You chose the pause over the panic. You chose grace over grasping. That space you're afraid of, that silence, it's not empty. It's full of your worth. You see, a lot of people confuse not chasing with playing games. They think, if I pull back, he'll chase me, or let me wait exactly 3 hours to reply. That's not what this is about. You're not pulling back because you want him to feel something. You're pulling back because you're feeling something. You're realizing that you deserve more than breadcrumbs, more than late replies, half-hearted effort, or mixed signals dressed up as charm. This isn't about getting petty. It's not about mirroring his behavior or trying to make him jealous. You're not playing checkers here. You're playing chess. Checkers is reactive. It's quick moves with no real foresight. Chess is strategic. It's thoughtful. It's intentional. And most importantly, it requires you to know the value of each piece on the board. That's you. You're the queen. You don't throw yourself at someone who can't even commit to being in the game. When someone doesn't give you clarity, when they leave you hanging, confused, doubting your own instincts, that's your cue to pause. And in that pause, you're not sulking. You're not sitting by your phone hoping they suddenly become emotionally available. You're redirecting your energy. You're going to the gym. You're diving into your passion. You're spending time with people who actually see you. You're not stepping away to punish them. You're stepping away to protect you. And here's the irony. The moment you stop chasing clarity from someone who's not ready to give it is often the moment they start waking up to your value. Not because you tricked them, not because you played it perfectly, but because your absence created space. And in that space, they feel the shift. They feel the difference between having you in their life and not. And if they're smart, if they have any emotional depth, that space will whisper something they didn't expect. You lost something real. But don't let that be the reason you move. Don't let your actions be a calculated attempt to get a reaction. That's still about them. The shift happens when it's no longer about whether they see your worth, but whether you're living in alignment with it. That's the moment you start playing chess. You're thinking 5 moves ahead. You're not clinging to the past. You're creating a future where your peace isn't up for negotiation. And here's what happens when you do that. You stop being the person who anxiously refreshes their messages. You stop being the person who interprets every emoji like it's some kind of secret code. You stop living in someone else's mixed signals. Instead, you become the person they think about, the person who suddenly isn't so accessible, the one they can't quite read anymore. Not because you're trying to be mysterious, but because you're too busy being fulfilled. That's magnetic. You don't need to slam the door. You don't need to post cryptic quotes or make it obvious that you're trying to make them notice. The silence is enough. The progress is enough. The fact that you've moved on without needing to explain why, that's enough. And maybe, just maybe, they'll sit with that. They'll wonder, they'll think, they'll regret, but by that time your standard will have risen so much that even if they do come back, the question won't be, will he finally choose me? It'll be, does this still serve the person I'm becoming? You're not trying to win someone over. You're not auditioning for love. You're deciding if they're even qualified to stand next to you. That's the power shift. That's what happens when you stop reacting and start choosing. Let him doubt. Let him wonder. Let him regret. And you move forward, unbothered, undistracted, and completely in your power.